we are the second batch, second generation of PIAC. The first generation has moved out under Major Retired Abla Kwaku, who did a very good job by establishing this committee. We, the second generation, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on analysis of data collected from various sources. And then we see how best we can discern on it. I'll look at where the sources of petroleum revenues, how do we share it, and how do we utilize it? Are the public happy with these expectations? The sources of data and information are from Ministry of Finance. They use the money. Ghana Petroleum Corporation, they are on the field, on the platform with Ghana Customs and Ghana Revenue Authority on the platform. Bank of Ghana, they do the day-to-day administration of the money as well as receive all monies and take proper care of it. The Ghana National Gas Company are responsible for the gas sales and others. And Sopon Offshore Producing Company also produces oil in that respect. Now, I would like you to tell you the sources and how revenues are expected. If you look at those in red, royalties, that immediately the oil come out of the ground, we get only 5%. From the word go, when the oil comes, Ghana government, this is your share, 5%, take it. Then the next area is carried an additional interest. Whilst the foreign oil companies put 10% for their costs, GMPC add 3.7%, which means that the carried and additional interest is 13.7%, which Ghana government enjoys from that. Then the last thing is, after the oil companies, that is Tolo, Cosmos, and others, have removed their capital expenditure, operational costs, and everything, and have been able to declare profit, then we tax 35% of that profit. So the source of our revenue, one, is from royalties, which is 5%. Two, from carried additional interest, carried and participation additional interest. And lastly, income tax, 35%. And 2015 semi-annual report is so interesting. It gives some balance and loopholes in the law that needs to be looked at seriously. And in this industry, you have to be objective, not to be sensational for that purpose. If you look a summary of it, I've said that the top 3 boxes is where we get our sources from. Royalties, carried and participating interest, corporate income tax, dividends, surface rentals, and others. So in addition, we have surface rentals, and then we have other royalties that add up to our revenue. When all these are received, it is placed in the Petroleum Holding Fund, out of which is shared and some go to GMPC. The GMPC, as I've told you, uses its money in equity financing, that is developing wells and also exploring. So 30% comes to GMPs. Then the 70% that is remaining, which are realized from CAPI, CIT, surface rentals. So if you have 100%, 30 go to GMPs. The 70 remaining remain with the Ghana government. With the 70% of 70%, I hope you understand, goes to fund our annual budget funding. That is where the budget utilizes this money to fund projects that go.
Prices have dropped significantly, so the revenues are not coming the way they should. But however, revenue is still coming in, so it's very important that we still see how the revenue is being used. The current system is that when the revenue comes, it's divided mostly into 3 areas. The first area is that it goes to support our budget, which is very critical. So if you want to follow the money, the budget, the national budget is a very key document to look into in terms of the revenue utilization when it comes to oil. The second bit is that we have a stabilization fund, which allows us to have some insurance. Cases where the oil prices drop, for example, we can go into that fund and pick something to support the budget. And lastly, we also have money for future generation, so that our future generation will have what they call the heritage fund. So tomorrow, they also have something to go into in terms of the oil revenue. Although some people are arguing that why do you want to save money for the future? Let's use all the money today. When the future generation thing come along, they'll figure a way out. So, but currently the law says that we should have that heritage fund. As the MC mentioned, we got involved because we organized what we call Hack for Oil, which was a hackathon, and we were trying to find solutions to some key challenges or problems. One of the problems that we identified, which our oil journey team took a look at, is that when the oil money gets assigned for projects, do they actually get utilized? Can we actually monitor to know that, look, this road is supposed to be built using oil revenue, and is it actually getting built in that direction? So the challenge was that a lot of citizens did not have information about how revenue was utilized for projects. So there was a need to create a platform that will enable citizens get access to information so that they can engage and interact. However, you have to know that technology is very important. It lowers costs. It will ensure that people have access to information. But the key ingredient to all this is about engagement. That citizens will say that, look, it's important for us to find out that the money allocated for this hospital was this used for this hospital. But in Ghana today, a lot of people usually do the famanyame. When the project is there, it's there. Sometimes they don't even bother to find out what's the project for, where's the money coming from. And that's some of the issues that impact a project of this nature, where we need citizens actually to be active and engage in the process to monitor the usage of your money. And essentially, it's your money. So if we don't monitor it, somebody will pocket it. And I think that's a fact. I think the key issue we have also in Ghana is the engagement. When politicians engage with citizens, it's quite low. But when it comes to elections year, like we have today, this year, a lot of politicians are now going out to do engagement. I was seeing on Facebook that the president went to launch a water project, and he was turning the tap on a poly tank. Because he needs to get out. He needs to account. So engagement around this period is quite high. So our oil journey team have to look at how can they contribute content to these elections in terms of issues. Some of the things coming from projects linked to oil expenditure, critical issues that should be discussed during this election. So they need to supply that content. I think it's very key. And also, politics is local and development is local. If there's going to be change, the change has to happen local. So it's also very essential that this project should not be seen as something hanging in the air because it's virtual, but we should find ways and means of localizing it. So in my locality, if there's a project, there should be what? A movement around it. There should be what? Engagement around it so that we can have that collective action to make sure that we can push things forward. The last remark I want to make is that collective action is very important. If in this room only one person is talking about the need to what? Utilize oil revenue judiciously, maybe somebody will listen to us. If 10, maybe, 100, maybe, but if thousands of us are talking about it, millions of us are talking about it, then people will what? They'll start listening. So it's very important that we ensure that a lot more citizens are interested in this issue so that they can engage better, so that the politicians will listen to us. So at the end of the day, we can actually what? Utilize the oil revenue for what? The improvement and the betterment of the country. So I want to bring my remarks to an end here. Thank you.
Introduce two key dignitaries in our midst currently. We have Nene Joseph Ni Togbo Obodai II. I believe I got that right. And of course, he is the traditional leader and chief of Ogbojo. And you know, our traditional leaders are very, very key when it comes to these sorts of projects, because eventually the projects will get implemented in the communities that they rule over. So it's very important. It's very, very important that we do have consultation with them. We do also engage them actively while doing these projects. So we find them as a very crucial part of the entire oil journey process, and also engaging them through this very launch is something that we look forward to. And we're also going to hear from him as well. But before we do, I'd also like to welcome Professor P.K. Boa Basua. Is that correct? Okay. Yes, thank you, Prof. And Prof is the chairman of PIAC. Now, PIAC is the Public Interest and Accountability Committee. Now, if you know the policing agency in this entire oil and gas fight, then you should definitely know that it's PIAC that is on the heels of government and other private sector companies in terms of how oil money is being used, in terms of how it's been also doled out for these sorts of projects. So we are going to have a presentation on what exactly traditional leaders expect from the use of the oil money, and how people like us can look forward to working with them as well in the future, and currently and also in the future. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Nene Joseph Ni Togbo Obodai II to take on the floor and also give us this presentation. Shall we give it up for him?
This oil money should be used to create a noble environment for our people, so that they will feel free to go about their businesses and therefore have the monies in their pockets. Now, looking at this, we feel if the oil money is used to bring about education within our communities, at least from kindergarten to GSS level, if this will be free for them so that everybody can have this education, I think it will help our communities. We also wish the money to be used in the area of health, that's having clinics within our communities so that we can have access to good health. That is also important to us. We also want to have clean environment. That is what we say sanitation day. Well, if we are provided with vehicles and things that will put our garbage and all these things, so that it will be taken to the discharging end, so that keeping our environment clean and save us from cholera and other communicable diseases. This will also be very good to us. We are also looking at the area of infrastructure, having good roads within our communities. Presently, we see certain roads being constructed, but we don't see how they are going about. Sometimes they make the drainage and leave these roads for so many years without coming back to attend to them. This is very worrying, because we don't see the road being surfaced or tarred to make the community, very lively and motorable. We feel these things should be done in a very good atmosphere with the oil money, so that it will also come to help us. We are also looking at the security situation. These days, we see what is happening all over. And if we are giving security by, putting up police posts or police stations within our communities so that we'll be safe. Sometimes these our young girls and boys, they go about, you see that their mobile phones and bags are being snatched here and there. If you go to the police station, you see that these reports are very rampant there. So we want the money to be used also in these areas for us, so that we feel the impact of the oil money, as they say, oil DNDC. Now we are also looking at agriculture, and then I want to know, want to see that the money is used in a way that some of our people who want to go into agriculture can be, supported by laws, so that they can go into agriculture in the area of livestock, and then this block farming, as they call it these days, within especially the developed areas in our communities, so that we also see the impact of the oil money, within the community. Our needs are very enormous, but I wish to end here and then leave the rest, as the journey continues. Thank you very much.
Actively focus. And there isn't any other place where it would be utilized on the ground apart from these traditional communities. So it's important that, as he mentions, areas like health, education, sanitation, and of course infrastructure be well addressed. Sometimes you don't know whether the construction happening in your neighborhood is being done by the MP, or it's being done by the oil money, or it's being done by someone, an assemblyman who also wants to, go up the ranks. It's so hard to track exactly what the monies are going into because of the sheer diversification of these funds. So having it, streamlined, having it being put on track, say, this is what we have, these are the areas you're going to, and you can track them in your community, as Nene says, that within our community there are going to be 5 security outposts, all funded by the oil money. Then it becomes easier for them to recognize the impacts of the oil money in their lives, including the lives of the farmers in the community, the students, and also the health workers, and every single person within that community as well. So we are moving on to talk about how Ghana's oil revenue is currently being utilized. And of course, there isn't any other key person to speak to this than the Prof himself. Prof PK Basua is the chairman of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee. Of course, a very key agency in terms of oil revenue utilization and transparency in Ghana. And we are very happy to have him here. So, Prof, I would like to welcome you to take over the floor with your presentation.
We are the second batch, second generation of PIAC. The first generation has moved out under Major Retired Abla Kwaku, who did a very good job by establishing this committee. We, the second generation, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on analysis of data collected from various sources. And then we see how best we can discern on it. I'll look at where the sources of petroleum revenues, how do we share it, and how do we utilize it? Are the public happy with these expectations? The sources of data and information are from Ministry of Finance. They use the money. Ghana Petroleum Corporation, they are on the field, on the platform, with Ghana Customs and Ghana Revenue Authority on the platform. Bank of Ghana, they do the day-to-day administration of the money, as well as receive all monies and take proper care of it. The Ghana National Gas Company are responsible for the gas sales and others. And Sopon Offshore Producing Company also produces oil in that respect. Now, I would like you to tell you the sources and how revenues are expected. If you look at those in red, royalties, that immediately the oil come out of the ground, we get only 5%. From the word go, when the oil comes, Ghana government, this is your share, 5%, take it. Then The next area is carried and additional interest. Whilst the foreign oil companies put 10% for their costs, GMPC add 3.7%, which means that the carried and additional interest is 13.7%, which Ghana government enjoys from that. Then the last thing is, after the oil companies, that is Tolo, Cosmos, and others, have removed their capital expenditure, operational costs, and everything, and have been able to declare profit, then we tax 35% of that profit. So the source of our revenue, one, is from royalties, which is 5%. Two, from carried additional interest, carried and participation additional interest. And lastly, income tax, 35%. And 2015 semi-annual report is so interesting. It gives some balance and loopholes in the law that needs to be looked at seriously. And in this industry, you have to be objective, not to be sensational for that purpose. If you look a summary of it, I've said that the top 3 boxes is where we get our sources from. Royalties, carried and participating interest, corporate income tax, dividends, surface rentals, and others. So in addition, we have surface rentals, and then we have other royalties that add up to our revenue. When all these are received, it is placed in the Petroleum Holding Fund, out of which is shared and some go to GMPC. The GMPC, as I've told you, uses its money in equity financing, that is developing wells and also exploring. So 30% comes to GMPC. Then the 70% that is remaining, which are realized from CAPI, CIT, surface rentals. So if you have 100%, 30 go to GMPC. The 70 remain with the Ghana government. With the 70% of 70%, I hope you understand, goes to fund our annual budget funding. Annual budget funding amount. The annual budget funding amount, a certain percentage of annual budget funding amount becomes our benchmark revenue. And this is how it operates. I have my annual budget funding amount. I have to forecast in my budget that, oil price may be $80. So I'm going to work with $80. Then in the course of the year, the oil price becomes $100. It becomes very interesting to work with that, which we experienced in 2011, 2012, and 2014. You budget $80, and then the oil price comes to $40. You budgeted for 80. Your actual money is 40. I'm talking about $40 per barrel. So already you are deficient. Where are you going to get the extra $40? And this is what we experienced in 2015. So you could see we are in a better position to balance 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. Very beautiful. Then 2015 onwards, the cost of the oil declines seriously. Now, so that is how the benchmark revenue plays. You forecast and you are given a certain amount. It can either be high or it can either be low. Fortunately for us, we have the two scenarios, which I'm going to talk about it for that matter. Then, if you are going to share the revenue, you have to think of the absorptive capacity of the economy. And you have to do a prudent microeconomic management according to the schedule of the PRMA. And if you are giving the annual budget funding, the law says specify your sectors to be approved by the parliament. 70% of it should be public investment, and 30% should be consumed. You will know the consumption later on. That is, if you get your 70% of the annual budget funding, invest 70%. Then the rest, you can use it for projects. Then another area is you can use the money for collateral. If you want any loan anywhere, you can go and use that money for collateral. I am talking about these fundamentals so that you'll be able to get the true picture of how the oil industry operates. Now look at the Jubilee gradually. Fortunately, the benchmark revenue was pegged at $100 US. So we were able to work within that area from $13 US to $3 US. I hope you understand what I'm saying over there. Then in 2015, September, it reduced drastically to $55 US in September, and even in December to $38 US. So we have got the two scenarios, and let us see how the money. I want us to look at where the source of revenue comes from. We have 10. Chinubua, Enyinam, so and so oil, so and so. We have got 10 development wells drilled before. Then, unfortunately, Côte d'Ivoire came in. That where you are drilling, don't drill. You were taken to International Tribunal, labor. The final ruling will come in 2017. But meanwhile, there were interesting areas that were supposed to be drilled. But the outcome of the tribunal says that don't go there. Let the final ruling come out. Who pays the piper? GMPC was given $8.9 million US to do exploration and also development projects. And in the 2015 semi-annual report, we saw that $2.1 million has been used to settle that court case. Who should pay that? Is it the Ghana government or the money that has been earmarked for exploration and development projects? Why should that happen? Does it mean that Ghana hasn't got money to do such things? Because when we are realizing profits from that, it goes to the Ghana government. Why should GMPC use its own money for exploration and development projects? Which means it's 1/4 of that money for maritime boundary special project. This is an area we have to explore and find out. Assuming GMPC used all those money given to it, does it mean that we can't pay? Next slide. Then Sankofa Jinyame, the plan of development of the project has been done by the end of December, and we are supposed to see development activities in 2015, which has already commenced. And the field is not within the disputed area and is therefore not subject to international tribunal. So we are lucky. 10 is in the ruling area. Sankofa Jinyame is out. So we can still explore seriously over there. Now if you look at this reference map, the agitation is this. I understand the maritime boundary. I'm not an expert there. But if you look at the stomach of Ghana map, the stomach is somewhere here. We have something called perpendicularity. So if I draw a perpendicular line from the tip, from Afasmin down, if I draw it this way, you can see that it passes through, this is the area we are mining. Then we have S, which we have got a lot of gas over there. You come down, another area, Kano Basin. If you draw it perpendicularly, this is how it is. If you use the stomach, it's triangular. And formerly, where no gas and oil was found, we were using the triangulation which Cote d'Ivoire agreed. Now that you have found oil and gas, the triangulation will not hold anymore. We prefer the perpendicularity. So Ghanaians, you have to pray hard. Yes, we need peace in this country. Both sides arguing, there is sense. I want the perpendicularity one, which passes through all the blocks. I'm explaining it simply for you to understand. I've drawn it down. It passes through most of the blocks. If I draw triangulation, this. After all, if you use the triangulation and you bring your oil rates here, you can still get gas and oil. I'm talking about Cote d'Ivoire people. Why do you worry us? Let's wait till 2017. How do we share the petroleum receipts? The government has a big problem. Any government that comes into operation has a big problem. There are 4 areas you have to satisfy if you want to share the oil revenue. You have to compensate the area which you are taking the oil in terms of environmental damage, job lost, and others. If farms are going to be affected, you have to see to it that these things are compensated. Then equalization. Make sure that the benefits should be between the rich and the poor regions. We will see at the end of my talk, for that matter. And you should not entertain any conflicts. You have to avoid conflict. You have to prevent it. And you should not use politics to pay off. That is the third aspect. Then the last thing is decentralized accountability to citizens. This is where PIAC is trying to aim at, which we have a lot of problems. You have to go around and tell people how the oil money are shared. So these 4 areas, we will look at it and see whether it's duly done. The PRMA was amended. And this is how extra things came into operation. When you get the petroleum revenue, as I've explained earlier on, it goes to petroleum fund, where 70% to be responsible for the benchmark revenue goes into consolidated fund. Then the petroleum fund, 30% goes to GMPC for its activities. Then the excess that goes to petroleum fund, we share it, the stabilization fund and the heritage fund. Then with the amended law, we have contingency fund and sinking fund. Sinking fund is for emergencies, and contingency, things that we have not, things that we have planned for in that. And they've set up, in addition, Ghana Investment Infrastructure Fund. So which means that with the new amendment, a lot of areas are explored. We normally have the raw data, and we analyze the data. So far, up to 2014, we have received 2.8 billion. If we add the semi to it, annual report for 2015, we get to about 3.1 billion US dollars up to June 2015. Yes. Now look at how we get the receipts. 2011, out of 24,000 barrels, Ghana had about 4 million. 2012, 26 million barrels, Ghana had 5 million, representing 25%. Then 2013, 35 million barrels, Ghana had 6.8, representing 19%. Then 2014, 37 million barrels, Ghana had 7.6, representing 20%. Meaning that since petroleum was drilled, Ghana has got about 1/5 of the revenue. And this you should understand. The person who is exploring is getting 122 million barrels. And Ghana is getting only 23 million barrels, representing 24%. Because you are getting your money from royalties, surface rentals, CAPI, and income tax, if profits are declared. So you could see the negotiation there. The negotiation is very, very, I don't know the adjective to use it. Next slide. Now with the crude oil and gas production, in 2015, we were able to mine a lot of gas. If that gas were not to be there, I don't know what would have happened to our energy crisis. A lot of the gas was given to VRA. Meanwhile, not counting even the LPG and the condensates. It's the lean gas that was given to VRA, amounting to 103 million US dollars. VRA has not been able to pay because Electricity Corporation has not been able to pay. So it's a vicious cycle. Meanwhile, Ghana Gas has to expand. So what do you do in that regard? Next slide. Then if you look at the mid-year crude oil production, you could see that it has been building up gradually from 2011 to 2015, remaining 19 million barrels for that matter. Sorpon has got enough bites. They should excuse Sorpon. However, if you look at the 2015, they declared to PIAC that they were able to mine 27. Meanwhile, with Ministry of Finance and GMPC, they say they were out of production. So that is why PIAC was saying that if according to you, you operated and you mined, pay us our due. And that is what the press have taken over for the last week, chasing. And this case, Yoko explored it, and the Attorney General's department has got the report. So we want to see what comes out from that. Next slide, please. Now, if you look at the money received, look at it. The benchmark revenue price, which I told you, was 100 US dollars. And look at the rate at which Ghana government is operating. Around 50 US dollars. That is the blue. So the price of oil has almost reduced to half of the revenue you expect to have. And the components are surface rentals. The amount is given 356. Heritage Fund is there. Royalties, 28%. And CAPI, carried and participating interest, 72%. So surface rentals doesn't give you much money. Royalties, 28%, doesn't give you much money. CAPI give you 72. And this is where new oil fields, we have to try and let GMPC get enough money to participate fully with equity financing. In that case, we should be able to get higher returns. And try to put things in place and say, GMPC, focus this direction. Make sure that your participation will yield a lot of dividends. That is where we have to look at. Rather than to criticize, give a lot of good suggestions so that GMPC will know that, oh, what these people are saying, they want for the benefit of the country. So let us look in that direction. Sorpon was producing at a very low rate. And the number of barrels they produce a day, a year, is equivalent. It's less than the number of barrels Jubilee Field produce in a day. The number of barrels Sorpon produce in a year is equivalent to the number of barrels produced by Jubilee Field per day. Meanwhile, oil prices is going down. How can you help Sorpon to revive or to close down? These are questions the oil gurus should think about. I'm a physicist. I'm not an economist. But for common sense, these things should rule so that we can realize better revenue for our country. Next slide. Now, if you look at the number of barrels received, as I've said, by 2014, it was 20%. Oh, no. This is the receipts, money. And if it's converted into cedis, it was 5.2 billion cedis. It was rising gradually to 2014 because the oil price, though, was declining, but it was in the 100 regime. Next slide. Utilization of the petroleum revenue. This is where the oil journey says I should travel with them. And we want to see how the revenue are utilized. And there too, there are rules. Petroleum spending. You should have efficient allocation. You should have responsible use. And you should have effective monitoring. We monitor, we look at all the three. Efficient allocation, responsible use, effective monitoring or spending. Then there is a problem here. 4 areas. Let economic development be maximized. That's the first point. 2, you have to promote equality of economic opportunity. So you have to maximize economic development. You have to equalize economic opportunities and make sure that you undertake even and balanced development of the regions. Even and balanced development of the regions. Unfortunately, some regions are richer than others. How do you utilize effectively in all the regions when the price fluctuates, when your projects are many, and when you have to satisfy the electorate? In that case, politics also comes in. Then the 4th point, we should be guided by long-term national development plan. All priority areas. At the moment, the long-term national development plan is not in existence. So we are guided by priority areas. There were 10 priority areas which was put before Parliament, and the government chose 4 of the 10 priority areas. The GA chief was given some of his priority areas. At the end of my talk, he will realize which area that he fit with his opening remarks. Next slide. These are the 4 priority areas. Amortization of loans and gas infrastructure, agriculture modernization, roads and other infrastructure, capacity building, including oil and gas. The unfortunate thing is, he says you can use the oil and gas money for capacity building. Then in brackets, including oil and gas. So what is in the bracket is not priority. I can use my oil money to develop any capacity I want. Nobody can hold me responsible. Then later on, I can include oil and gas. I am interpreting it from scientific point of view, not legal point of view. That is how I understand it. And when we go into the utilization, maybe the scientific explanation may be logical to that, to some extent. Yes. 2013 utilization. I would like you to monitor it closely. If you look at Western region, the road from Abuaze to Atwambo has been nicely been done. And look at the money involved. 23, but in addition to that, there are other roads in the Western region. Then Central benefited, Greater Accra benefited a lot. on the roads, Volta, Eastern, Ashanti. The magnitudes are higher in Greater Accra, Volta, Volta, Ashanti, Blongahafo regions. Northern, Upper East, Upper West, no. I mean with oil money. Then if you come to education, in 2013, Western Central, Greater Accra, Volta, nothing was allocated for education. Eastern region benefited, Ashanti benefited, Brongahafo, Northern, 0, Upper East, 0, Upper West, 0. Then we come to energy. Western Central benefited, Greater Accra benefited, Volta, Eastern, no Ashanti, Brongahafo, Northern, Upper East because of the solar. So you could see that the Upper East was a lot, and then Upper West. Then you come to Agric. Western region benefited, Central, Greater Accra, Volta did not benefit. Eastern benefited, Ashanti did not benefit. Brongahafo, Northern benefited, Upper East, nothing, Upper West benefited. Then you come to other, because the allocation may be national in character. You don't know where to put it. And the other is that. Then if you look at it, you could see how the spread is so wide. We don't feel much effect from those allocations. Next slide. So if you look at it, Eastern 4%, Ashanti 12%, Brongahafo 15%, Northern 2%, Upper East 6%, Upper West 3%, others 4%, Western region 19%, Central region 7%, Greater Accra region 15%, Volta 13%. And these were in the areas of roads, which is 72%, then education 5%, energy, and then agric 5%. So emphasis was on roads in 2013. Next slide, please. Again. Now, if you look at it, in 2012, the money was given to departments. It was not used on the regional basis. Regional basis started 2013. And look at how thinly it has been spread. The unfortunate regions are Central, Upper West, Upper East, and Northern. The poorer regions will remain poorer. Next slide, please. Yes, because this is where I'll give plus to the Ghana government. It used a lot of the money as loans to be able to improve the energy sector. And a lot of money was used to develop the Atuambo gas plant and to pump gas from that place to Abazi. They did very well. However, I'm talking about 2011 to 2013. 118 road projects representing 63% of the annual budget funding was for roads and other infrastructure. And with agric modernization, look at how they define agric modernization. Support for national programs and projects, construction, rehabilitation, irrigation infrastructure, procurement of equipment and supplies. Then if you look at the other side, capacity building, I told you that including oil and gas, Maslow loanable fund. Chief was saying we should give them loans to go into agric. They had tried in 2013, 2011 to 2013. The loans were not paid. Ghanaians, we will criticize if you assist them. They do not go according to the rules that have been set. If you go and ask them now, oh, we thought, when we were in Sunyani, the woman said, oh, we thought it was given to us as single parent to be able to come up. She was able to explain very well. But if you ask her to ask government what the oil money is being used for, you say, I don't know, the oil money doesn't come to me. The National Youth Employment Program that you are talking about, which the government is oil money, is there from 2011 to 2013. Then you say you don't know where the oil money is going because the capacity building, you have not defined it. Then what is interesting is goods and services. You build bungalows for agric officers. You build quarters for so and so sector. You do that under capacity building. I buy. Next slide. Let us look at 2014 allocation. 29% was for loans. Road and infrastructure, 39%. Agric modernization, 31%. Capacity building, no allocation. So 2014 was the year no money was allocated to capacity building. Next slide. You know the reason? Because they needed a lot of money for small and medium enterprise projects incubation facility. They needed a lot of money in that area. So they put expenditure and contingency on the CDB, Chinese Development Bank loans, related small and medium enterprise projects, incubation facility. So that's the reason why there is no allocation to capacity building. Next slide, please. This area I've said, you have to take it serious. Go back. Because planned expenditure was contingent upon the CDB-related small and medium enterprise project incubation facility. Keep it in mind. The examiner will call for it later. Next slide. Oh, the first record is this. 666 million Ghana cedis allocation was not utilized as a result of the non-disbursement of CDB loan for existing projects. As a result, they capped and went for stabilization fund to be able to monetize. It remained there. They did not utilize it. Then, agric modernization, because of sea defense on the coastal areas, and because of other projects they are supposed to do, that is Anmabo Fisheries College, a lot of money went into the agric modernization over there. That is why agric got a lot of money in 2014. Next slide. Now, if you look at the 2014 utilization on roads, only Upper East was the region which did not benefit from oil money for roads. On education, Upper East region did not benefit. All other regions benefited. Then on energy, because of the sector, we have to try and complete power generation in Abuaze. A lot of money was put in, and it is even not right to put it under Western region, because all of us benefited from it. So if you look at it on energy, apart from the solar energy project in the north, which the north, Upper East and Upper West benefited, no region benefited from energy from the 2014 allocation. Next slide. So if you look at it, agric sector social intervention to save the sea defense war and other things. That is why agri sector got 44%. Roads reduced considerably, 33%. Energy increased considerably, 20%. And education had 3%. Next slide, please. So on regional basis, that is what it went through. Upper West, 3%. Upper East, 4%. Northern, 2%. Brong-Ahafo, 3%. Ashanti, 7%. Eastern, 7%. Volta, 13%. Greater Accra, 4%. Central region, 2%. Central and the Northern are always in trouble. And they are the poorest regions in the country. Next slide. I'm saying that because I come from Central region. Then if you look at the distribution of the priority areas, you can see that loans had 55%. Then agriculture, 4%. This is semi-annual report of 2015. I'm talking about 2015. So 2015, a lot of money went to the gas infrastructure to pay off. 45% agri modernization. Roads and other infrastructure, 20%. And then capacity building, 21%. Let's go into details what it means by this. Next. Now, on the whole, you can see that the ABFA, almost half has been used and up to 2014, and half has been put into the stabilization and then heritage fund. So, I don't know whether it was coincidental. We have some money in the heritage and the stabilization fund. Next slide. Now, if you look at the spending, because the incubator facility project did not come on, that money remained out of that. Otherwise, we should have got 2.5 million. But because that thing was not utilized, we have that. But if you look at it, road and infrastructure and amortization of loans, this is where the government has concentrated a lot with the oil money. Putting it there is one problem. And going to the field to find out whether the project has been done is also another problem, which PIAC has not been able to do. That's the sole reason why we were given a 4-wheel car last month to be able to use it to the field to monitor them. We will do it accordingly. Next slide. So on the whole, you could see that 50% of money is over there, and 50% has been spent. Next slide. Now, if you look at the semi-annual report, the government, you see, the semi-annual report, the oil money was used on social interventions, which is not sustainable. The first one is part payment for outstanding bill for fertilizer subsidy. Part payment under agric modernization. Abai. Do you modernize agric under paying outstanding bill for fertilizer? Then next one, payment for the construction of dam and irrigation infrastructure at Sandema, Wega, Zuedam, and Tankasi in Upper East. You see, that is how Upper East has benefited a lot. The irrigation project is there, and other projects are also there. And there is a dike in Central region, Keemi and Okawu Aka in the Volta region, and Silibele in Upper West region. So, if you look at the allocation, transport, 14%. Education, 1%. Ghana Infrastructure. Because of the Ghana Infrastructure Fund, that is why road sector reduced considerably, because that money has been put there for your infrastructure purposes. But it has, at the end of 2015, it has not been utilized. That money allocated to the infrastructure fund. Energy, 17%. Then water project. Water is not in the priority area. But because of the roads and other infrastructure, there are very good lawyers in this government. You can divert easily. Water infrastructure, even though water may be under another sector out of the 10 priorities, which was not selected. You understand my argument? Next slide, please. Now, these are the projects. Social intervention in 2015. I'll go bit by bit. Allow me to go through. Payment of second-term claims to Ministry of Education to improve capacity at the primary and secondary school level. Now it's going to basic. Then payment of Public Financial Management Reforms Program. Payment of capitation grant. Payment of feeding costs of colleges of education. Payment of feeding grant of institutions of handicap. Payment of initiatives to improve the capacity of teachers across the country. Payment of Becker subsidy